Thank you for joining us. This will be covering the diving education for Ohio high school officials. This presentation is focusing on your rule book and technique and information on diving, how to judge diving. So thank you for joining us. I am Ryan Wilson. I am out of the Central District as a diving coach and also as an official. So our overview for this presentation is the diving basics, your starting positions, the 5 diving categories that you will see, the 4 positions of diving, or 4 positions of a dive, there we go. Dive numbers, your entry, and then we'll move on to 7 points of a dive, which contain the starting position, approach, takeoff, flight, positions, entry, and distance. We'll then move on to judging a dive, then how to score a dive, your scorecard and word association, twisters, when is it considered a failed dive, key meet referee responsibilities, new rule changes for the 21-22 season, and additional education materials available to you. So diving basics. Starting positions are forwards or backwards in diving. There are 5 categories in diving. Fronts, which the dive numbers begins with 100. You'll want to know these dive numbers as you will hear them in dual meets and championship meets if you are on a panel for those. So fronts is 100s, backs is 200s, reverses are 300s, inwards are 400s, and twisters are 5,000s. For fronts or forwards, 100 category, your forward takeoff or your forward direction is with the body facing forward and the dive made forward. We'll watch a video. There's no sounds with these videos. For backs or backwards, 200 category. For backward, the back is to the water and the diver is rotating away from the diving board. Reverses, 300 category. For a reverse, the diver is facing forward and the diver will be rotating back toward the diving board. For inwards, 400s. The inward, the diver's back is to the water and the diver is rotating towards the board. Twisters, your 5,000 category. For twisting, any dive with a twist is included in this group, whether the dive is actually going forward direction, backward direction, reverse direction, or inward direction. Twisters are always 5,000s. The 4 positions in diving. Tuck, the letter C that you would hear during the announcing of a dive. The body shall be compact, bent at the hips and knees. Knees and feet shall be close together within the body line of the shoulders. The hands shall be on the lower legs and toes are pointed. So you can see from the 3 images in image 1, the young lady is tight tuck, chest against knees, chest against thighs, elbows against body, grabbing the middle of her shins. In image 2, obviously during a meet, you're not going to see the top portion of this angle of a tuck position, but you can see that his knees are together, feet are together. He's grabbing, just below the knee caps on the front of his legs, and he is getting into a tuck position. Picture 3, you can see that the knees are apart from this angle. You can tell that the knees may be right in line with the shoulders, or maybe right on the edge of that, grabbing close to the middle of the knee, middle of the shins, and toes are pointed. Pike position, letter B, that you will hear announced in a meet. The body is bent at the hips, legs are straight with no bend or crimp at the knees. Legs and toes are together, toes are pointed. Position of the arms is at the option of the diver. So you have 4 images in front of you. Image 1, the diver is grabbing the calves, the back of the calves. Arms are tucked against the legs are straight, chest is as close to the legs as possible, head is tucked in. Picture 2 shows a diver bear hugging or grabbing with both arms behind the top of the calf muscle, behind the knees, pulling in close to the legs, chest to the legs. Head is in kind of a neutral position, but towards the shins. Image 3 is an open pike. The diver's arms are extended out and a little bit down to the sides of the body. Chest again as close as possible with the head in a neutral position, toes are pointed. Image 4 shows a diver in a basic pike where they are reaching out over the top of their toes. Head is in between the arms, so a neutral position, and the chest again is as close to the legs as possible. Straight position, the letter A that you would hear in announcement of a dive during a meet. The body should not be bent at the knees or hips. The feet are together, the toes are pointed. The position of the arms is at the option of the diver. So we have 4 images again. Image 1, the diver in this image is actually coming into, or is twisting in a twisting action. So the body has to be straight in that action to occur, for that action to occur. Position, or picture 2, excuse me, the arms are against the body. The diver is probably coming out of a dive, so they're getting ready for an entry position or entry lineup. So the head is looking at the toes for good flat body, arms are against the sides. Picture 3 shows a diver setting the arms during flight, nice straight body. They are probably getting ready for an entry because the head is a little bit high, but they'll move their arms laterally to get a line up for that entry, but that is also straight body position. Picture 4 shows another diver in a straight body position with a set with the arms out to the sides. It's probably a front dive straight or maybe an inward dive straight, just depending which direction the board is at behind or front of the diver. But the body is in a straight position. Again, the position of the arms during flight is the choice of the diver, but the arms shall be kept still until just before entry into the water, when the divers shall move their arms so that they are brought together and extended above the head or beyond the head and aligned with the body for the head first entry, or they will drop the arms down to the sides against the body with the elbows straight for feet first entry. For free position, the letter D that you would hear announced during a meet. D, the free position is a combination of positions that may be used to perform a twisting dive. So in picture 1, you see the straight body position that is necessary for a twist to occur. Then you have the diver in position, or picture 2, that is kind of bent at the hip, starting to get into a pike, arms are coming out to the sides. Then you see picture 3 where the diver is in a open pike position. Picture 4 shows you the entire progression from the piking into the somersault action to the straight position during the twist. And then this one has it where the body stays straight. They're missing a step, but the diver would then again pike at the bottom for that entry position. If they were going to their head, if they were going to their feet, then the body would stay straight as the diver is coming out of that twist and would go in for a feet first entry with arms against the sides of the body. Dive numbers. Again, you will need to know your dive numbers as these are announced during dive meets, during the dual meet or championship. So the first dive number indicates the type of dive. So 1 is forward, 2 represents backward, 3 represents reverse, and 4 is inward. The second number that you would hear is typically a 0. However, it does indicate, based upon if it's a 1, if there is a flying action, or 0 if there is not a flying action. Again, typically that middle number will be a 0 as to indicate a non-flying action during a dive. If you hear the 1, it means that there is a flying action that should occur during that dive. The third number tells us the number of somersaults. So it's half. it goes by half. So 1 would be a front dive, so it's half somersault. 2 would be a full somersault. 3 would be 1.5 somersaults. 4 would be 2 somersaults, and so forth. The letter tells you the body position that the dive is going to be done. So A is straight, B is pike, C is tuck, and D is free. Twister dive numbers are larger. So as we said, twister category is 5,000. So the first number indicates the dive, 5 for twisters, 5,000. The second number indicates the direction of the dive, of the twisting dive. So we're now taking the previous slide of the 3 numbers that we just went over, and now we're pulling them into the rest of the 5,000 category. So first number indicates the type of dive, so it's a twister, so it's always going to begin with 5. The second number indicates the direction of the twisting dive. So 1 for forward, 2 for backward, 3 for reverse, and 4 for inward. The third digit tells us the number of somersaults. Again, 1 would be a dive, 2 would be a somersault, 3 would be number 3 would be 1.5 somersaults, a 4 would indicate 2 somersaults, and so forth. The final number of this twister dive number indicates the number of twists. So it goes off the same as the somersaults. 1 is a half twist, 2 is a full twist, 3 is 1.5 twists, 4 is 2 twists, and so on. So again, the first number in a twister dive is the indication that is a twister, so 5. The second number indicates the direction of the dive, it's forward, backward, reverse, or inward. The third number indicates the number of somersaults that will be performed in the dive. And the final number indicates the number of twists that the diver will execute. The final is the letter, and again, this will tell you the position. Is it straight? Is it tuck? Is it pike? Is it free? Most twisters are done in the free position. If a position has to be declared in a twister dive, and that occurs when you are doing more than 2 somersaults, so 2 plus somersaults, then you have to declare a position, tuck or pike. But otherwise, they are in the free position if they are doing single somersaults, a dive, just a single dive, or 1.5 somersaults. Types of entries. We have head first entries in picture 1 and feet first entries in picture 2. For the head first entry, the arms are at the ears, locked arms, biceps are squeezing the ears, tight body, legs are together, feet are together, and toes are pointed. So in image 1, this is actually a back entry. So this diver is entering the water from a back takeoff, a reverse takeoff. And the arms are going to be a little bit behind the ears, which is totally fine. The body position itself will maybe be a little bit arched, not dramatically, but a slight arch. They may not be completely vertical, and that is okay. That goes into mechanics of how to enter the water nice and clean. A lot of divers cannot do it straight up and down vertical, so they do have a slight arch in the lower back. For image 2, this is a front entry, so the diver's coming in for the entry on off of a front takeoff or an inward takeoff, and the arms are going to be squeezing the ears, so you won't see the ears. The chin is neutral, and the body again will have a slight hollow body position, so tight belly, belly button to spine. They will not have a pike in the hips, but you may see kind of a hollow body position and not necessarily a straight vertical up and down body lineup for a head first entry on a front or an inward. Image 3, excuse me, shows the hands. So this is a little bit of a quick take, but the diver, as you can see in image 1 and 2, image 1, the hands are coming together for that lineup. Image 2, you can see that the hands of the diver are already grabbed, they're grabbing a flat hand. And image 3 is actually the part where the diver has started to separate the hands and open a hole basically in the water for the body to slide through, to have a, to attempt to have as little splash as possible. So you're starting to see that split. But the divers will grab their hands on head first entries. They'll typically grab the fingers, the palm, the back of the palm of the hand. They're not grabbing the wrist. They're not grabbing the forearm. They're grabbing the back of the hand to the fingers of a hand. So here's an head first entry in action. For feet first entries, the hands and arms are against the sides of the body. Body should be straight and vertical upon entry. Body is tight, legs are together, legs are straight, feet are together, and toes are pointed. You can see from image 1 that this picture has a caricature of a diver, just straight vertical body, exhibiting all of the key points to the left. Image 2, you can see the diver. Her hands are maybe a little bit, what I would assume is in front of her, slightly on her thighs, but that is totally fine. The arms are still tight against the body on the sides of the bodies, on the side of her body, excuse me. Head is up and she looks to be pretty vertical upon that entry. Feet first entry in action. So we're moving on to the 7 points of a dive. The first point of a dive is your starting positions, the forward starting position and the back starting position. A dive begins when a starting position is assumed. So for a starting position, diver has straight body, arms are at the diver's choice, so against the body, shoulder height at the ears, it's in front of them. It's wherever they want to start their arm position at. But they're going to show good posture, right? The back starting position, again, diver's choice of arm position. Diver has good position, again, with the body, nice and straight. The feet may be together as in the picture that we have on the screen, or they might be slightly apart to maybe about hip width apart. So for forward starting position, so this is your 100s, 300s, 5100s, and 5300s. A diver is at the middle or towards the back of the diving board, and the front of their body is facing the water. Once the diver steps onto the board, they will adjust the fulcrum. Maybe they'll do it before they get on the board, but some will do it on the board. They'll finish drying off with their Sammies. They'll listen to what the announcer says, do all the little things that they need to do to get ready. But they must stop and pause and show the ready position. The ready position, again, consists of good posture. Eyes are looking towards the end of the board or maybe to the water. The starting position of the arms, again, is at the choice of the diver. So in image 1, arms are against the side, ready position, tight body. Image 2, same, and image 3, also looking forward. The backward starting position, so 200s, 400s, 5200s, and 5400s. The diver is at the end of the board with the back to the water. Again, arm position, starting position is the choice of the diver. The feet may be, together. They may be slightly apart. They may be shoulder or hip width apart. Excuse me. But the back of the diver is facing the water. The diver's head is maybe neutral. Their eyes might be looking towards the middle to the back of the diving board, maybe the wall that's in front of them, but they're not looking necessarily down at their toes. Again, good posture, good body posture. Diver also has to stop movement of the diving board before showing good start position, before showing a start position. So they walk to the end, the board might be moving, but they need to stop movement of that board before showing their start position. Forward approach with a hurdle. So this is point 2 of the 7 points of a dive. Forward approach with a hurdle. So this is 100s, 300s, 5100s, and 5300s. No less than 3 steps. A diver cannot do any less than 3 steps. They can do 4, they can do 5, they can do 6, but no less than 3. The forward approach with a hurdle finishes with a hurdle. A diver must go from 1 foot to landing on both feet at the end of the board. Additional steps, hops, leaps, skips, and/or jumps during initial steps and before the accumulating hurdle are permitted. When using the forward approach, dive is failed if, in the referee's opinion, the diver performs any additional bounces on the end of the diving board after the accumulating hurdle. That is the referee's opinion on that one. Forward approach in action with the hurdle approach. So we have a new rule for the 21-22 season, the standing forward takeoff. The diver will assume a start position that includes, similar to what we've talked about for the forward and for the back, upright head, good body position, body with arms straight. The position of the arms is the diver's choice. The diver may move the arms to various positions provided no attempt to start the dive has occurred. Diver shall stop oscillating the board just before or after start position is assumed. No oscillating the board more than 4 times. This is also a new rule clarification that is new for the season, that the diver cannot oscillate the board more than 4 times once the start position has been assumed. Diver will not allow feet or both feet to leave the board during oscillation prior to the final spring of the board. And the diver will not allow oscillations so large as they disrupt the tempo or smoothness of the dive. Back press, 200s, 400s, 5200s, and 5400s. Starting position, head is upright, body with arms straight, and the arms are in the position of, again, the diver's choice. The divers may move the arms to various positions provided there is no obvious attempt to start the dive. The diver shall stop movement of the board just before or after the starting position is assumed, no more than 4 oscillations before the diver leaves the board. If more than 4 oscillations occur, judges can deduct a half point to 2 points per judge. You will not be instructed on that. You can just do that yourselves, a half point to 2 points. For back press, the diver shall not permit a foot or both feet to leave the board during oscillation prior to the diver actually leaving the board. The oscillation should not be so large as to disrupt the tempo and smoothness of the dive. The forward standing takeoff, and the back press are very similar with their rules on how to do those correctly per your rule book. Back press in action. This does not demonstrate the new oscillation rules, just so you are aware. This does not include the new rules for the 21-22 season. So you will see more than 4 oscillations in these next videos of a back press. Point 3 of the 7, the takeoff. Takeoff shall be from both feet simultaneously to an adequate height to perform the dive. There should be no excessive leaning on takeoff. The chest and shoulders should not be past or over the tip of the board, over the water. The head should be neutral on your 100s, 300s, 5100s, and 5300s. So fronts, reverses, front twisters, and back twisters, or reverse twisters, The butt and shoulders should not be leaning back past the tip of the board or over the water on 200s, 400s, 5200s, and 5400s. So that's your backs, inwards, back twisters, and inward twisters. Head should be neutral and not back on 200s and 300s, which we'll look at some images below. The head should be neutral and should not be on chest on 100s and 400s. Be aware that some divers may appear to crow hop, but their feet never actually leave the board. So image 1 is showing that good chest takeoff that we had spoken about not leaning over the tip of the board or over the water. The chest is in line with their knees. They're not leaning past over the end of the board into the water. Their heads are neutral and their arms are coming up above their heads. Image 2 shows the crow hop that we were just talking about, where their feet may look like that they come off the board, but as you can see, there is no light between her toes and the board. Her feet are still on that diving board. Image 3 is an example of the head should be neutral on your 200s and 300s. Image 4 shows the diver's butt and shoulders are not leaning past the tip of the board or back over the water. He is either doing a back or an inward, but you can see his hips, his butt is in line with his heels, and his shoulders are over his thighs. So he is showing good, proper technique on takeoff. Image 5, again, is showing the neutral head on backs and reverses. Again, these are proper technique and what we are looking for in an ideal situation. This is not always the case, but this is so you are aware of what actual proper technique is supposed to look like and what you're supposed to be aware of. New rule for the 21-22 season, again, is the standing forward takeoff. Standing forward takeoffs are permitted in meets. They are absolutely permitted now. The diver elects to perform a standing forward takeoff. The diver shall declare intent to the diving referee before performing the dive. Penalties occur when a diver performs a standing forward takeoff. The referee shall deduct 2 points from each judge aware of the violation of the forward approach. So the diver has declared intent to do a standing forward takeoff, and the diver does the dive. The referee then says, okay, you're going to take 2 points off of your scores because there was a violation of the forward approach. That is acceptable. If a diver does not declare intent to perform a standing forward takeoff, it shall be considered an unsatisfactory dive, and the diver will receive a score no higher than 2 points. Both penalties will not be assessed. Either the 2-point deduction when declared before the dive is performed will occur, or no higher than 2 points awarded when not declared prior to the dive being performed. Both calls will be made by the diving referee. Point 4, flight. There should be adequate height and vertical push off the board. Flight includes your positions, tuck, pike, straight, or free. So to achieve good adequate height and vertical push, a lot of the mechanics that we spoke about earlier come into big play. If the chest is leaning on a forward takeoff or reverse takeoff, the chest is leaning way over the board, over the water, the diver is most likely going to be low and they're going to shoot forward away from the board, shoot out. On a back takeoff, if the diver's butt is over the water, their shoulders are back over the water, they're most likely going to be low and straight out back away from the board, far away from the board. So during flight, the diver needs to show adequate height and vertical push up off the diving board. Flight again includes your positions tuck, pike, straight, and free. So C, B, A, D. Your tuck position. C, the diver's body shall be compact. Body is bent at the hips and knees. Knees and feet should be close together within the body line of the shoulders. Hand grab should be on the lower legs, middle of shins. Elbows should be against the body, not sticking out like chicken wings. And the toes are pointed in the tuck position. So we have an image of good versus poor technique. The good technique, from this angle, we can see that he's grabbing low, he's in a small tuck. Yes, from this angle, his knees are beyond the shoulder width, line of shoulders, but from the side, you may not be able to see this, but from this angle, obviously we can. but he is in a tight tuck. For poor technique, you can see that her hands are too high on her knees. So loose tuck, her legs are going to flop around. She's probably going to slip out. The head shape, her head is tucked into her chest, and she has a huge gap of space between the top of the thighs and the chest. So it's just a very loose, sloppy tuck. Pike position. Body is bent at the waist, legs are straight with no bend or crimp at the knees, toes are pointed, legs and toes are together, position of arms is again at the choice of the diver. In diving, there are 3 actual pike positions within the general pike B category, right? So basic pike is the image 1 that you're looking at. Divers reaching out over the toes, chest is against the legs as close as possible, head is in between the arms and neutral. Image 2 is an open pike. Chest again is as close to the legs as possible, arms are extended down and out to the sides. Diver is looking out over the toes, but the face is close to the shins as well. Image 3 is a closed pike. This diver in this image is doing a bear hug or grabbing behind the calf muscles, but again, the chest is as close to the legs as possible, legs are together, toes are pointed, nice flat line. The diver can also grab behind the calf muscles as a closed pike. That is perfectly acceptable with the elbows against the body. These are all acceptable ways to show a pike position. Again, basic pike, hands should be touching or extended to be on the toes. Elbows are straight, toes are pointed, body is bent at the waist, legs are straight with no crimp or bend at the knees. Open pike. Diver's arms are straight out from the side of the body. Hands can be horizontal to body or just below hips. There should be little to no space between chest and legs when divers in this pike. Closed pike. Divers can grab the calves or bear hug around the back of calves to back and knees to hold the pike position. Elbows should be against the body, not sticking out. We have an image of good versus poor technique again. The diver is grabbing, bear hugging behind their calf muscles, behind their knees. Chest is close to the body as possible. Legs are together, toes are pointed. Poor technique. The legs are bent. You can see feet are kind of crossed over, lots of space between the chest and the legs, head is up. Straight body position. The body should not be bent at the hips or the knees. The knees and feet are together, toes are pointed, position of arms is at the choice of the diver. For front dive straight, back dive straight, reverse dive straight, and inward dive straight, the above information that we just went over is per your NFHS rulebook. However, there is a standard for arm placement in the diving community, and we want you to be aware of what that is. It's where the arms are straightened out to the sides of the body at shoulder height. This is during flight. And you can see in the image above the young lady in the red and black suit, her arms are set, what we refer to as a set. Her arms are out to the side and like a lowercase t around shoulder height. This position should be shown and held during the flight. So they're not flapping their arms around like chicken wings. They are stable. Now they will move the arms for entry for lineup, and the arms should move lateral to head for that ready position into that entry. So the arms are at a set at a T. When they're ready to line up for entry, they will move the arms laterally to ears above the head. Straight position, good technique versus poor technique. For the good technique, feet are together, toes are pointed, arms are tight against the body, body is straight, he has no bend in his hips or his knees. His head is up because he is looking back for entry at this point and getting ready to move his arms laterally for a lineup. For the poor technique, legs are apart, feet are separated, arms are out of position of alignment, they're bent, and head is also kind of up, but he might be going for an entry as well. Free position. Again, free position is a combination of positions used to perform a twisting dive. So again, image 1, we have the straight body position where the diver is doing the twist action. So the body has to be straight in a straight position. Image 2 shows this diver spraying out of a twist. So he's starting to get ready for a lineup, which means his hips are going to start closing towards a pike position. Image 3 shows the diver in an open pike position because they're going head first into the water for a twister, and they are lining up and getting ready for that lineup. So they have to go from that straight position to a pike position, and then they'll open up again straight for that entry. You can see the progression to the left that shows the diver coming off of the springboard on forward. The diver does a somersault in pike position before coming to straight position for twisting action. And if they're going feet first, they will stay in the straight position for entry, feet first entry. If they're going head first, they will go to that image, the collection of images that we have, the 1, 2, 3 for that lineup. So they'll go from the straight position during twist to the opening up part with the arms starting to bend at the waist. And then the final position before actually entering water is image 3, where they're doing the, again, open pike position to get ready for entry. Point 6 of your 7 points of a dive is the entry. Clean entries will influence a part of the final score, but it is not the only thing to judge. You have to remember there are 7 points, not just the entry. So a splash can obviously influence. If it's really a heavy splash because the dive went over, the dive went short, that can influence your score, but it is not the sole thing to judge. A high quality dive that has everything else that we want to see, or majority of what we want to see from the start, the hurdle, the flight, the takeoff, the position, the dive itself. The entry can maybe be a little bit heavy, but you're not just scoring the entry. You have the rest of the dive to consider as well. So with an entry comes a come out. How do divers come out of their dives? And how do they get ready for that entry? How do they enter the water? What do they do prior to that actually happening? So for come out, for a proper and controlled come out for 200, 300, so backs and reverses, a diver will extend legs with hands on thighs. So if they're coming out of a tuck position, if they're coming out of pike position, you will see either image 1 or image 2 happening. They've come out of their position, they're getting ready for that lineup. The diver might be on backs and reverses in this image 1, where the diver's kind of a hollow body, diver's looking at their toes, hands are on thighs. Again, this is proper technique. This is a harder skill to show when coming out of a dive to line up for an entry. Image 2, this one too, if they are coming out of a back or a reverse, you can also see this position be hit, as he's a little bit more arched and coming in, looking at his toes, hands on thighs. The head will be, again, slightly tilted down because, again, the diver are looking at their toes. The body may be slightly hollow, like image 1, to slightly flat, like image 2. Video, the third image is a video, and we're going to watch the come out in action. So the diver has come out, they've gone to the hollow body position or the flat, hands are on thighs. How do they move their arms? How do they get their arms above their head? So once the diver has kicked out or opened the body from their backs or reverses, the diver then must move the arms. There are a number of different ways divers may move their arms before achieving lineup for entry. So picture 1 and picture 2, divers may move through the center of their body with hands and arms as close against the body as possible. So they're going to take their hands and they're going to stay tight against their core as they move the arms up. And they're just going to keep their hands as close to the body as possible. They're not going to come far away from their body. So you won't see necessarily a whole lot of space between the hands and the core, the belly. Hands are separated. So they're not grabbing their hands down there. Their hands are separated, as you can see in image 1 and image 2. And the elbows are out to the side. So again, you can kind of think like chicken wings, they're out to the sides. The elbows are drawing the hands up the core of the body. So the hands are not leading this movement. The elbows are leading that movement. The elbows are drawing up and the hands are following the elbows. Proper arm movement towards lineup for entry does not include moving arms centered and straight out away from the body. It's come down to mechanics. You don't want the arms to come out away, like straight out in front of you and then up to the head, because that actually physics and mechanics and forces the legs down and does a bunch of crazy things. So you don't want the arms, proper lineup. The arms do not come through center straight elbows or arms. The arms are going to be against the body. Hands are going to be tighter against the belly. Elbows are leading that movement up towards the top of the head through the core. So for once the divers get their elbows up and their hands are probably about their chin, around their head, shoulder, chin placement, we have to move the arms, we have to move the hands to get them above our head, right? We can't continue elbows all the way through. So divers may move arms once they get them to about the chin, shoulder height. They may move their arms out to the side with lateral, then lateral with straight, image 3, or bent arms to achieve proper lineup. So bent arms is image 4. So they've moved their hands through core, elbows first, but now they got to get their arms to the above their head. So they can do this with straight lateral movement, or they can do it with bent arms past their ears to above their head. For lineup of twisters, diver may move arms up and out to shoulder height for come out. So number 5, image 5. You see this diver, his arm is coming out nice and high, with the other one kind of at shoulder height. And then the image right below him, the arms, you can't see the left arm, but the right arm is about that T height again. So he's squared out is what we refer to as, squaring out. If a head first entry, arms will then move with straight or bent, as image 3 and 4 was shown above, to achieve proper lineup form. If feet first entry, arms may move straight down to the sides of the body. And this is for twisters. Again, the arms, when the twisters are happening for a diver, twister or arm placement during twists is the diver's choice. They can be tight against the body. That's where they should be tight against the body, but they can be in the center of their chest. They can have one arm across their chest and one arm behind their head. They can have both arms the direction of the twist at the shoulder height. They can have them down by their hips. Their arm placement is absolutely their choice. And there are no penalties or deduction during the twist for their arms placement. So going to the come out, again, divers may move arms out to the sides and lateral straight. The image that we showed on slide 47, or bent arms to achieve proper form. So his arms went lateral movement on his entry, or for his entry, I should say. This is a twister. So you'll see her square out and then lateral movement. This is a front dive half twist. So you'll see straight arms and then lateral movement. So that diver did the lateral movement, arm high out above his head, and then dropped his arms down to his sides. Again, you'll see the lateral movement. So continuing with the come out, pike outs. This is, again, a harder skill, but it does show good form and is a proper way to come out. But this is an acceptable way to come out of a tuck position for a lineup for an entry. So a pike out is when a dive is done in a tuck position and a diver transitions from tuck to open pike prior to lineup for the entry. Again, this is a harder skill. This is not necessarily, this is not a requirement in high school diving, but it is a harder skill and shows control over a dive, control and height over a dive, and is absolutely permitted, and no deductions should be happening, unless obviously if it's sloppy and not high quality. But this is permitted in diving. For lineup, again, we have head first entries. For head first entry, the hands need to be above the head with locked elbows. The legs are straight and together, toes are pointed and toes are together. For head first entries, for fronts, the arms are going to be covering the ears for fronts and inwards. For head first entries, for backs and reverses, the arms will actually, in proper placement, be behind the ears. So you may see the ears on the head first entry for reverses and backs. For feet first entries, the hands and arms should be down against the sides of the body. The body should be straight, tall, vertical. Legs are straightened together, toes are pointed. The body position again should be vertical. The dive is considered finished when the body has passed below the surface of the water. So the body's under the water, you're done judging. You can't judge what's underwater. If you don't see it, you cannot judge it. If you saw it, judge accordingly. But if you don't see it, I mean, if you just assume it's there, you can't judge that because you didn't see it. Head first entries, 100s, 400s, and 5000s. The body position is vertical to slightly hollow body. That was a head first entry for backs and reverses. I apologize. So for backs and reverses, the body position is vertical to a slight arch in the lower back. Trying to make her go again. There we go. So reverse, she's doing reverse dive. So the body position is vertical, a slight arch in the lower back. Head first entry again for backs or reverses. He's doing a back 2.5, so this will be a quick come out. Feet first entries for 100s, 200s, 300s, 400s, or 5000s. The body position should be vertical upon entry. Your last point of the 7 points of dive is your distance. Correct dives will be performed at a safe distance from the board. The rule of thumb is if a diver is too close to the board, it causes you to flinch or jump. This can be considered too close to the board. So arm's length away is, perfect distance. If it's anything closer than that or causes you to jump or flinch, it can be considered too close to the board. Judge scores according to word association with the score ranges. We'll get into that here in a second. Divers should be in front of the diving board upon entry into the water. They should not be off to the side, to the left or the right, doesn't matter. They should not be crooked either. They should be square front and center of the diving board upon entry. If a diver is not center or in front of the diving board, the judge may take will take a half point to 2 points off of their score, their own individual score. You will not be prompted by the referee for this. This is for you to remember, but you will take a half point to 2 points. You have that discretion on how much you want to take off your score. For your scorecard for judging, each judge scores a dive between 0 and 10 points in half-point increments. Scores are defined as the following. 10 is excellent, 8.5 to 9.5 range is very good, 7 to 8 range is good, 5 to 6.5 is satisfactory, 2.5 to 4.5 is deficient, half to 2 is unsatisfactory, and 0 is completely failed. Now, with a 0, please note that you giving a 0 does not mean that the referee has called a failed dive. Just be aware of that. You can still throw a 0, even if the referee has not said it is a failed dive. Scoring with word association. So what we have found is that for snap judgments that have to occur in diving is that if we put words to our score ranges, that tends to get us into the range when we have to think quickly about the 7 points of a dive and our deductions. And we have to process that information very, very fast. And if we put words to those, we have a better rate of success of falling into the correct scoring range. So for word association for 10, so definition is excellent, right? Word association, wow, that was amazing. Oh my God, that was perfect. 8.5 to 9.5 range, you're very good definition. Great job, very nice dive. 7 to 8 range is your good definition. Pretty good, it's a solid dive. It was definitely better than okay. 5 to 6.5 is satisfactory. It was fine. It was okay. It was mediocre. There was nothing really, it wasn't bad. It was fine. 2.5 to 4.5 is deficient. Oh no. Oh, that was really flawed. That was bad. That was not good. Not good at all. 0.5 point to 2 points is unsatisfactory. Almost failed. Very bad. Completely unacceptable. Lots of issues completely are off. Not even, it's not good. 0 is failed again. It's an incomplete dive. It's the wrong dive. Failed will be called by your referee, your diving referee, but 0 is, it's just incomplete dive, wrong dive, just, it was not a good dive, but the referee maybe didn't say that it was a failed dive. You can still technically give a 0. Difference between score categories, excellent, again, that's your 10. You feel there are no deductions that can or should be taken off. Very good is your, what is that, your 8.5 to 9.5 range. Extremely good mechanics, clear position, very high in the air, dive finishes well above the water, clear lines on entries, correct shape shown on entries, maybe just a little bit short or over. Really very good is, it's all of these things. Maybe it's missing one of the smaller thing, one small thing, or maybe it's just a little bit, you know, a little bit off. But that's the very good definition. Good is the overall good mechanics, but perhaps one minor flaw of the above, you know, maybe the mechanics were good, but they weren't extremely good mechanics, or maybe there was a slight bend in the knees, but it wasn't drastic. Maybe everything else was great, but maybe there wasn't tons of height. So it can be a minor flaw. Satisfactory, the dive was okay. Again, has some minor flaws, but the dive is just not polished enough to be considered a pretty good dive. Deficient, slightly flawed, sloppy form, unclear position, very short or very over, poor technique, bad mechanics, etc. Unsatisfactory, major flaws, hits the diving board with any part of the body. Hair is not included in that, but any part of the body, the hands, the feet, an elbow, hopefully nothing serious. Judging a dive. So judging a dive begins when a diver is in their start position. Judging a dive does not begin when the diver necessarily steps up onto the board. They might still be drying off, fixing the fulcrum. It begins when the diver has shown their start position. Judging a dive ends when the diver's head or toes have gone underwater. Max of 4.5 if the diver's hand or hands are above the shoulders when entering the water on a feet first entry. You need to be aware of this. This is your responsibility. The referee will not prompt you on this. But if the hand or hands are above the entry or above the shoulders on a feet first entry, max of 4.5. Max of 4.5, the diver's hand or hands are below the shoulders when entering the water on a head first entry. So if the hands are at the shoulders or below the shoulders, max of 4.5, again, your referee is not going to instruct you on this. You are expected to know this. Mandatory 0.5 point to 2 point deduction that is not instructed by the referee. Diver does not stop movement of the board just before or after the start position is assumed in a standing forward, back, or inward takeoff. There are more than 4 oscillations during standing forward, back, or inward takeoffs. Crow hopping, again, when the foot or feet leave the board prior to a forward standing, back or inward takeoff. The cowboy tuck or the split tuck, where the knees are spread beyond the width of the shoulders. The diver enters the water to the side of the board or is crooked. Or the twisting manifests from the diving board, meaning the diver's feet are on the board and they have twisted 90 degrees already when their feet are still on board. Do your best not to prejudge or have expectations from divers because you know who they are. Maybe you've watched their warm up. You know that they are a year-round club diver. They've been to nationals. They're on the, USA diving national traveling team. Or, maybe they're not a club diver. Maybe you know that they're just a high school diver during those, 3 months. But don't let or prejudge. Don't have expectations or prejudge diver because you've watched warm-ups or you know who they are. Do your best to not let the excitement of the crowd influence your scoring. This is, we've been to exciting meets and it's amazing diving and we get excited, but you can't let the excitement of the crowd and the loudness of the crowd and the cheering influence your scoring. You have to reference back to the 7 points of a dive. Do your best to not let the excitement of a high degree of difficulty dive influence your scoring. Again, remember the 7 parts of a dive. You will see it from time to time that these divers in high school are doing college level dives where they're doing back 2.5s and reverse 2.5s and inward 2.5s and front 3.5s and so forth. And those are high DD dives because they are very difficult to do. But don't let the excitement of that high DD dive sway you from remembering your 7 points of a dive. Do not play favorites. Do not predetermine who the leader is or should be. If you give an okay dive a 5, do not give the same dive that's slightly better or good, the same score. On the flip side, if somebody's mechanics were off, were less quality or lower quality, not every dive is going to be a 5, not every dive is going to be a 6. Go back to your 7 points of a dive and make that, unfortunately, a snap judgment. You have to be quick and you have to make those calls very, very quickly. You should not already have your fingers on a score before the dive has been completed. You should not be ready to open your scorecard to a 5.5 when the diver has not even finished the entry of their dive. Use the entire range of your scoring scale, 0 to 10. It's very comfortable to fall into that 5, 6, 6.5 range. But again, reference back to the 7 points of a dive, what you're looking for, what your mandatory deductions are, and your word association with your scores. Start at the top of the score range that goes with your word associated to the dive. From there, deduct appropriate points. This is a suggestion. We have found that this is a little bit easier to do with a snap judgment versus adding points in, but you find your way of what's easiest for you to go through mentally very quickly what you need to do deduction wise and your word associations, and to get those scores up and out as quickly as possible. Again, this is a suggestion of starting at the top of the score range that goes with your word associated to the dive and then deduct points from there. Reward good mechanics. Avoid fixating on a specific flaw like crow hopping. That's the easiest to see, right? Your split tuck, easiest to see. Flex toes, easiest to see. If it happens, you see it, deduct as appropriately or reward as appropriately, whatever situation it is, but don't fixate on that specific flaw. Don't always look for that thing because you're missing a whole other aspect of the dive. You're missing the remainder of the dive. And you're only focused on that part. Award scores independently without consulting other judges. You're on a panel. You're being watched by coaches. You're being watched by athletes. You're being watched by spectators. If possible, please hold all questions or comments or anything you have while you're on a panel until afterwards. You might be asking your neighbor something completely unrelated, but the perception is that you guys are consulting about scores. We don't want that to be misconstrued or interpreted incorrectly. So again, just hold all comments until after the competition. Everyone makes mistakes. If you make a mistake, clear your mind and move on. Don't try to make up for it on the next dive. We're human, we make mistakes. It is what it is, and you just move on to the next part. I know sometimes it can be difficult, but every person at every single level in judging diving has experienced this in some capacity. It can be a half point, it can be 2 points, 4 points, it's a whole spectrum, but we all make mistakes. Just clear your mind and move on, and just don't try to make up for it on the next dive to the next diver, or trying to remember, oh, I should do X, Y, and Z to that diver the next time they come up. Just no. Practice, practice, practice. The more you judge, the better you will become at judging diving. As officials, for many officials, this season is their exposure and that's it. You are doing a disservice to our athletes if you are not continuing to educate yourself on the sport that you're officiating. And we want to make sure that we are giving the best experience to your other officials, but also our athletes. Our athletes, for many, this is it. This high school is their experience. And if you aren't properly educated, then you're not providing the best experience possible for them. So practice, practice, practice. Watch videos, ask local coaches to come watch practices, ask questions. If you feel comfortable with the dive coach at the meet that you're at, go to them after the meet, ask for some, critiques on what you can do better, what they thought you did well. If you feel comfortable with that coach, absolutely please do that. Talk to your fellow officials about what you can do to improve, and also improve or increase your exposure to diving. The more you see it, the more comfortable you will be with making those very quick judgments on scoring. Getting into twisters. So twisters, when is it considered a failed twister? Now, remember, for an actual failed dive, your referee will instruct you on it being a failed dive. But remember that twisters can be done, again, in all directions, front, back, reverse, or inward. And they can be in free, tuck, or pike positions. When twisters are done in the free position, accommodation positions may be used to perform twisting dives. When does the dive referee fail a twister? So a failed twister happens when the diver does not execute the pike before the twist and dives front dive half twist in the pike position, or inward dive half twist in the pike position. The pike has to be done before the twist. If it's not, the dive referee can fail it. The diver does not contact the water with the hands or head first on a head first entry, or with the feet initially on a feet first entry. So let's repeat that. So the diver does not contact the water with the head or hands first on a head first entry, or does not make contact with water first with the feet on a feet first entry. The diver executes a twist as determined by the position of the diver's shoulders that is greater or less by more than 90 degrees of what is written on the score sheet when the diver's feet or hands, depending on which entry they're going for, connect with the water first. Again, diver executes twist as determined by the position of the diver's shoulders, the shoulders. Very key point of that. The dive referee can fail a twister if the diver in a twisting dive twists the shoulders past 90 degrees before the feet leave the diving board. So this is going back to the twist manifest from the diving board. The shoulders past 90 degrees before the feet leave the diving board. That can be considered a failed and will be initiated by the diving referee. So when twisters are diving in when twisters are done in the free position, again, accommodation positions may be used to perform twisting dives. And this is an example. So that diver did a back one half half in the free position, but he did a combination of positions, which are completely acceptable. So he started straight and then he tucked, during that dive. Watch it again. Completely acceptable. Started straight and then ended it with a tuck and entry, straight entry for that end of the dive. Here's another example of a combination of positions for a twisting dive. Straight and then pike. When are twisters done in a free position other than free? When are twisters done in a position other than free? As I said earlier, when there are more than 2 somersaults being performed, a position, tuck or pike, must be declared. It'll be declared on their score, on their diving sheet. The announcer will tell you if it's C or B, tuck or pike, but it will be declared prior to the dive being performed. Diver must show the declared position during the dive. The execution of the twist is at the discretion of the diver, meaning that the twisting action may be performed at the beginning or at the end. So this is a front 2.5 with 1 twist, pike. So that diver did 2 somersaults pike, and then he did his full twist at the end and then lined up for entry. When does an official fail a twister? The diver does not contact the water with the head or hands first on a head first dive or with the feet initially on a feet first dive. So the dive you're going to watch is supposed to be a full twisting front 1.5, 5132D. Yep. Try that again. So the diver is supposed to be doing a full twisting front 1.5. And we're not going to apparently play this. I apologize. But for this video, the diver, his feet make contact first, and he tries to continue the dive forward, and then his head and hands end up hitting the water at the very end. But unfortunately, I apologize that this video is decided not to play for me on this recording. So we'll go to the next one. Hopefully these will play. This is the determined position of the shoulder. Diver's shoulders is greater or less than by 90 degrees. Both of these videos are supposed to be full twisting, 1 single somersault full twist. Hopefully these will play for us. And of course they're not going to. Excellent. Again, I apologize. So the first video would have been the diver doing single somersault full twist. So 1 full twist, but the diver actually does almost 2 twists, and again, determined upon the shoulders. He obviously over twisted. This one as well, she's supposed to do a full twist and ends up, the shoulders are just at the half twist. So again, it's less than 90 degrees when the feet make contact with the board, or I'm sorry, with the water, and where the shoulder placement was, and the shoulders were less than or greater than that 90 degrees on that twister. So I apologize that those videos are not available for us today. Key meet referee responsibilities during a dive meet, dual dive meet. So these are just kind of a tidbit of what responsibilities are for a referee. There are many other things that a referee is responsible for during a dive meet, but these are the key points. So the referee checks all the dive sheets prior to the competition, making sure that the dive description is correct, dive numbers match with the description, positions, degree of difficulties. The dive sheets are signed by the athlete and the coach. They will hold a diver meeting before the competition begins. The spiel that a referee gives to the athletes is always a little bit different, but they hit key points about, major rules that they need to be aware of. If there's questions before the dive, asking. If they don't hear something, ask, and so forth. But that is up to the referee to determine what they want to interact with the kids about. New rule for 21-22 season is that the referee is now responsible for resolving any announcer errors and immediately allowing the diver to do the correct dive prior to the next dive that is to be performed by the following athlete. The referee authorizes a dive to be repeated upon request from the diver involved when execution of the dive was influenced by exceptional circumstances. So the diver starts to go, in their approach, or maybe during their flight or towards the end of their dive. A loud bang happens, somebody drops a water bottle and stands, drops something, makes a loud bang, or maybe there's a flash of light from a camera that disrupts the dive. The diver is able to come up and go immediately to the referee to ask for a redo. A coach cannot do that on behalf of the diver, and it has to be done immediately after that circumstance, not after the next diver goes. The referee is responsible for instructing the panel on the following: a failed dive. The referee will also inform the score table to record the failed dive. When a diver is disqualified, a diver can fail 2 dives before being disqualified. So the diving referee will talk to the diver, they'll talk to the coach to let them know that the diver is disqualified if a second failed dive occurs during the competition. They will instruct the panel on max of 2 points for when a diver's body part hits the board, not the hair, but a body part. The diver does not attempt to come out of the dive. There's clear incorrect position. There's no hold of straight body on flying somersault, or the diver does not declare standing dive prior to executing the dive. 2-point deductions. The referee will instruct the panel on those 2-point deductions for balks. This is when the diver begins to start, they've shown their start position, they start movement of the dive forward on their hurdle, or maybe their back press, and they stop and they restart, reset their start position. That is considered a balk, and the referee will declare that. And also for forward approach violation. So under 3 steps, additional bounce at the end of the board in a forward approach, the standing forward takeoff that the diver has declared prior to performing the dive for a standing forward takeoff. At the end of the meet, the referee will review the dive sheets and sign the dive sheets after the competition. For your NFHS rules for the 21-22 season, divers are now permitted to use temporary applied adhesives. So like a lot of times you'll see can spray stickiness that they'll put on their shins for grip. This is permitted now. The boards will be open for practice during the time it takes for cuts to be made in championship meet, unless the meet director has established specific guidelines prior to competition. Those guidelines are usually in the meet instructions or information packet well prior to that event. If it's not, divers are permitted to practice in between those cuts. For your 937, this pertains to the forward takeoff and clearly defines the proper procedure for performing a standing forward takeoff and the protocol for application of the mandatory 2-point deduction. You can read the rationale on your own. The next new rule clarifies that only 4 oscillations are permitted before the diver leaves the board. It's 4 in total. I know in the past it's been different, but it is now 4. Your next rule is your 964. This defines process to rectify the announcement errors that occur during competition. Again, this is the responsibility of the diving referee to instruct and to rectify. Additional education materials. We do have the high school diving officials page. You can like that. We've been trying to be more proactive on that page of videos and opportunities for education for our officials. You can check with your association about additional dive videos or access to videos. There are books and DVDs that you can get out there. NFHSlearn.com, there are certificates that you can get for free online. You may not be a diving coach, but the diving coaching diving option on that website is actually pretty good. It allows you to watch videos and then give your score and then the rationale for why that dive should have been whatever score they give. So it's very informational. It's great access, even if you don't want to coach diving. Again, if you understand the mechanics and the technique, you are going to be able to make those snap judgment on judging diving much easier and more confidently. Again, and they're officiating, swimming, and diving from that website. There are YouTube instructional videos, and then always feel comfortable or feel free to reach out to someone on your association, or again, a dive coach that you feel comfortable with, to ask about coming and watching a practice. They can plan accordingly, especially if you want to ask questions and have it be more interactive. If you pre-plan it, you can have that interaction, or if you just want to stop by and watch their practice without interrupting them, you just got to make sure that you are following whatever facility protocols for COVID they have, and then interacting with the coach prior so they're aware of you attending their practice. I want to say a big thank you to our coaches and officials that contributed to help and develop and update this presentation. This is a committee that we have that covers all of our officials across the state. This is being used for all of our associations diving meeting requirements. And we have taken an official from each district and a dive coach from each district, and come together with the help of RJ and also with Rob pulling videos for us to create this presentation to make a concise and cohesive information packet and education for our officials across the state. So I appreciate you taking the time to watch this. Always feel free to reach out to me, Ryan Wilson, for any questions or connecting you with a local coach, dive coach, to have more exposure to diving and education. So I appreciate your time, and we look forward to having a very successful season. So thank you for that.